You're listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses. Each week, you'll hear my thought-provoking conversations with Olympians, pro athletes, CEOs, elite coaches, best-selling authors, and other high performers to uncover their secrets to success. Get ready to be inspired each week when we talk about leadership, teamwork, work ethic, and more. Are you ready? Let's go. This week, my guest is six-time AVP Pro Beach Volleyball champion and Paris 2024 Olympic hopeful, Betsi Flint. In 2015, Betsi burst onto the pro beach volleyball scene and was named the AVP Tour Newcomer of the Year. Since then, she's been one of the most effective and consistent beach volleyball players in the world. Named the AVP Best Server of the Year in 2019 and 2022, Betsi's skills span both the physical and mental side of her sport. And she's known for the cerebral, strategic nature of her game. In our conversation, Betsi shared tons of actionable ideas that you can apply to improve performance in anything. We explored Betsi's approach to learning new skills, increasing self-discipline, and how she turns weaknesses into strengths. We also dove deep into a framework called Think Box versus Play Box, a powerful tool that Betsi uses to increase her focus and be more present. I've already started applying this idea to different areas of my life, both personally and professionally, and I hope you find it helpful as well. Betsi also talked about how to build an adversity plan, a framework that she and her volleyball partner use to plan for and manage challenges that arise. It's a concept that individuals, couples, families, and organizations of all sizes can use to navigate adversity more effectively. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. It is absolutely jam-packed. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Betsi Flint. Betsi, I'm excited to dig into your story, but where I want to begin, you were born in a small town in South Dakota. How did you even get started in beach volleyball? That's where I want to begin.
Yes, born in a really small town. And we'd moved to Arizona when I was about 10 and was introduced to beach volleyball and club volleyball there. I had a love for basketball for the longest time and just eventually fell in love with volleyball. Played with like one of my best friends on the beach and we were absolutely terrible. And for a while, it's so much different than indoor, and had a rough first year, but eventually started doing well and loved beach a lot more than indoor, but indoor brought me to California. I went to LMU, Loyola Marymount University, and beach volleyball became an NCAA sport when I was there. So I got to compete starting my sophomore year, and it was a dream come true for me to be in California and be playing beach volleyball and, yeah, pretty much living the dream.
Betsi, I'm curious, what is the biggest difference besides the environment between the indoor volleyball sport and the beach volleyball sport where you're in pairs with one partner?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. 2-on-2 is a lot different than 6-on-6. The elements, the wind, the sun, the heat. I'm contacting the ball pretty much every time it crosses the net versus indoor. There's 6 of us and you have 3 contacts, so you don't always get to touch the ball. So there's a lot of control in our sport, which is a lot of fun. And it's a lot of like self-discipline in our sport. We choose our coaches. We get to make the calls and have a lot of control. So it takes a lot of discipline.
I'm curious, that phrase self-discipline, you use that there. How do you go about building a training regimen? Like, what does the training regimen look like for you? It maybe is a little bit different than a traditional team sport where, it's all organized by a coach. What does it look like?
Yeah, I'm someone who thrives with structure. So I like to map it out and know in advance, but I know it's challenging for some athletes who don't know how to do that or they're learning. For us, we're practicing on the sand 4 days a week, which it's about 2 hours, but we're there 20, 30 minutes early warming up. So about 2.5 hours, 4 days a week. And we're lifting 3 to 4 times a week and conditioning 2 to 3 times a week. So it gets jam-packed the week as we're going. And I'm a mom. I have a 2-year-old. So I try to get all my training done in the mornings and come home and be a mom from 2 o'clock on. So it's definitely a balance for me.
You talk about the elements there, Betsy. I'm someone, I like going to the beach, but I hate having sand on my skin. I don't even, amongst all the other issues I would have getting into beach volleyball, the lack of talent and the lack of strength, the lack of ability, the sand, that would just annoy me.
I think you could get used to it. It's different when you're there playing or you know you're going to get sweaty and sandy. When I'm there and I'm in nice clothes, I don't really want to get sandy either. So it's different.
I could understand that. I could understand that. So, Betsy, I'm curious, was there a moment that you remember thinking, hey, I'm really good at this, or I have the potential to be a lot better than everybody else at beach volleyball?
Yeah, right out of college, well, before my last year in college, sorry, I qualified for a couple AVP professional events. So I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I thought it'd be cool to be professional, but never really thought like, is this reality? Can it be reality? And then graduated. I played with an opponent, a rival in college. Me and Kelly Kalinsky now is her name. She just got married. We went and competed and we didn't qualify for the first AVP. And we're like out there, we don't have school anymore. And that was really frustrating. And we just stuck with it and were persistent and continued to have better finishes. And we ended up winning a tournament our first year. And at the time, we were the youngest team to take home a championship. So that says something. And I think that was the moment where it's like, okay, maybe I can do this.
What was it about it early on, right? I mean, you were the AVP Newcomer of the Year in 2015. You had success at a very young age by the professional tour standards. What do you think enabled you to have that early success?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is some of the strengths I've found that I have is like determination and discipline and initiative, things like that. I didn't recognize it at the time, but I mean, you look back now and like skill wise, I was not very good. I think I'm a lot better now than I was then. So it's crazy to think back and I'm like, wow, I won an AVP. I mean, I've been playing for like 8 or 9 years and I've won six. So that's a good number, but also you can see how hard it is to win a tournament. So yeah, I think just those intangibles and those skills that like the mental game can really set you apart from anyone.
How do you go about now building a game plan to improve? Are you someone who focuses on continuing to build out the things that you're strong in? Do you focus more so on the areas that are more so weaknesses for you? Talk about that for a minute. How do you balance it all?
Yeah, definitely both. We have a coach that helps work with us in studying our game to know exactly what to work on. You definitely want to work on your strengths. I think serving is one of my strengths. And, you just want to keep sharpening the sword. You want to keep getting better at it, but then definitely bringing up your weaknesses. So, I mean, a lot of filming and game planning and just mindful practices. I think it's easy to go to practice and go through the motions or not be dialed in on one thing, but I'm really good at just picking one thing. And if that's my focus, I'm going to get better at it. Kind of the quote, he who chases two rabbits chases none. So just dialing in on that one thing. And I think it's inevitable to get, you got to get better at it if you're really focused on it.
I love that. I love that, Betsy. I'm writing that quote about the chasing two rabbits down. I'm going to remember that. Now, I'm curious. Do you think people just kind of gravitate to things that they're good at and they show up to a training, and if they're not disciplined enough, they just go through the motions on the things that come easier to them or that they like more? Do you think that people in general, need to focus on the things that they're not as good at?
For sure. I think having a coach helps in our sport. Some people have them, some people don't. It kind of depends on the funding people have. But I think that really separates athletes. And I mean, having a coach is awesome, but you really have to have like that self-discipline and motivation to like stay focused on that one thing. And I mean, I'm sure there's days that I show up and it's easy to get caught up going through the motions, but I really don't like it. And I feel like I'm wasting my time. So for me, especially as a mom, like I really want to like prioritize my time there and take advantage of it. And I want to be there with purpose.
Be there with purpose. That's an important lesson that everybody can take away and apply to whatever it is they do. You talked a few minutes ago about the nature of beach volleyball in general. It's a 2-on-2 sport. You have to cover a lot of ground. You're involved in pretty much every play. You're getting touches constantly. How do you manage all of that mentally, right? I mean, obviously there's a physical conditioning piece, but how do you manage just staying on your toes, proverbially, right? Like on your toes, always ready.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard sport. I think the mental game is what separates the top teams for sure. I mean, there's two of us out there, and people's game plan is to pick on one player. So they're going to serve me or my partner and just wanting to be served and wanting to get every ball. And I mean, practicing like mental skills. And I think I had a really good base with that at LMU. They really took it seriously, and we had sports psychologists, and I felt like I had a really good foundation. But it's something that you still have to practice and still meet with sports psychologists and just prepare to take on mental challenges.
Now, you just described each player picks somebody to pick on, right? I mean, your opponent's picking, it's going to pick you or your partner, and they're going to pick on you, and they're going to try and dissect your game in one way or another. How do you avoid not overthinking it, right? The match starts and you're just thinking about, okay, they're going this way, they're going that way, they're trying to do this to me. It wasn't what I expected. How do you avoid overthinking and just move forward?
Yeah, that's a skill. It's a challenge for sure. I'm someone who likes to think often, and it's definitely practicing those things. I've learned that I have a think box and a play box, and this is not my idea. This is, I can't remember her name. Famous golfer. I'll have to send you her name. But I want to think outside of my play box, and I want to play in my play box. So when I step into my play box, I'm thinking about like serve me and reading the server's hand. So that's it. Like I want to protect that space and keep my thinking minimal. And if I want to think about like the wind and maybe a strategy, I'm going to step back and be outside of like my server seat position. So like there's kind of this metaphorical box, but in our sport, we kind of have this real box that we're playing into. It works for baseball, and obviously golf is where it originated. So I really love that. And I remember the first time I was playing with my current partner, and she starts talking to me, and I said, "I'm in my box, don't talk to me." And that like just set the tone. She's like, "Okay, like I get it." So yeah, I don't want to be distracted. If I overthink in my play box, then I'm probably going to shank the ball, or I'm going to not have a quality rep.
I've got so many questions now, Betsi, off of the play box and the think box. Okay. So you're in the play box and your partner there just starts talking about something, and you tell them like, "No, I don't have time to deal with that right now." Now that's like a very direct example of how you filtered some noise or potential distraction. Now, if you're in the play box and things start creeping into your mind, bad thoughts, things that you're worried about that are going on at home. Hey, I got to take my daughter here. I don't know if we're going to make the Olympics, right? When these things start creeping in the play box and it's just you, and you can't just look at somebody and say, "Stop." It's in your own mind. Are there things that you've taught yourself to do or that you've learned to try and slow things down?
For sure. If there's time, ideally I'm like stepping out of my play box and like physically and then stepping back in, but oftentimes there's not. Like things come to me and they're about to serve the ball. So if there's time, I want to like acknowledge like, okay, that's okay that I had that thought, because I can't control my thoughts and they're going to creep in, but I can control my attention and where I put my focus. And if it's really fast, then I'm just like, okay, like read the ball, like I'm trying to get back to my cue, or like I'm saying, serve me. And there's times where like I'm not able to do that. And obviously I'd love to do 100% of the time, but I'm still like working on it. And yeah, it's inevitable that those thoughts are going to come in.
Betsi, in keeping with this thought, this think box and play box, I recently interviewed a former Major League Baseball catcher, and I asked him a question about the two different roles that he has on a Major League roster. He's a hitter and he's also a catcher, right? And he has to call the game, he has to manage the pitchers. And I asked him about how do you manage times when, you're not hitting really well and you just struck out, and then you have to go back to the dugout And then you got to come out and you got to catch, and you got to be totally in the zone. You got to understand the pitcher's game plan. You got to call the game. You've got to essentially be the field general. And he said to me, he said, Andrew, just the act for about 10 to 15 seconds of putting on the catcher's gear kind of flipped a switch in my brain that said, the hitting's over. Now I'm a catcher. And then you go back into the dugout and you're ready to hit. You know, you spend 10, 15 seconds taking the catcher's gear off, and now you're ready to hit. And you don't worry about whether you made an error or you called the wrong pitch and the pitcher gave up a home run. I'm curious, when you are crossing that line, either the literal line or a figurative line, is there something that you are doing to get into that mindset? I mean, do you take a jacket off? Do you change the way your glasses are positioned? Do you have like a catcher's equipment example like he described?
In a way, I do like to kind of wander in the sand and like move the sand around, sometimes pick out things and throw them off the court. But for me, it's just kind of what I say to myself. It's like, serve me, like pass the ball. And having that aggressive mindset kind of gets me to cross that line, because ours happens a little bit faster than like the changing of an inning. But it's like a very similar analogy. That's awesome.
Now, everybody says you're one of the best serves in the business. You're an incredibly cerebral and thoughtful person when it comes to serving the ball. And I want to kind of break it down a little bit. So like, what are some of the things that you're thinking about, that you're analyzing, that you're processing like really quickly as you're going through getting ready to serve?
That's great. I think for sure, like backing up, like the foundation of serving and technique is super important. And I feel like I've gotten to a point where like that's in a solid spot. And now I'm able to move it around a lot behind the service line. One is, I like to serve the serve that you're not expecting. So no one knows what's coming. And I love just having the freedom back there and not feeling like I have to go to a certain spot. And then just knowing like if there's pressure on the other person, like I've served them 2 balls in a row and they're feeling a lot of pressure. I probably don't need to put my best serve on them, and they're still not going to pass the best ball. So it is fun to play mind games with people and control the first contact of the rally.
Why do you think it is that you can kind of create that element of surprise and that ability to kind of find someone kind of flat-footed and not thinking what might be coming?
I don't know. I think it's people are doing it not that often, so they don't see what my serve is doing as often in other players, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want other people to do that.
Well, Betsi, I'm curious now. You talk about playing the sport with a partner, and I played competitive tennis when I was younger. I always preferred singles rather than doubles. I mean, obviously, doubles, you don't have as much room to cover. Just admittedly, it wasn't something that I necessarily felt like I was very good at, with that coordination with the partner. But you're obviously very, very good at it, and you've done it with so many partners over the years. And I'm curious, what kind of goes into that relationship, and how much of the communication is verbal? How much of it's nonverbal? How much are you reading body language? You just kind of know what each other are doing. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. I think being a good teammate is a really important skill, and it's undervalued for sure. There's a lot that goes into it. I think usually with a new partnership, we meet with a sports psychologist and talk about kind of the characteristics and values we want to embody on the court that are familiar, and picking a couple out that are in our control, and then like going over an adversity plan, because we're playing in a sport that we're going to have adversity probably every match, and what our partner wants to hear from us and what I want my partner to do for me when I'm struggling. And I think that builds a relationship right there. And then having communication, constant communication throughout, like if like something you're saying isn't working, we've got to talk about it. But there's a lot of nonverbal things too. Like body language is huge. Like if I see my partner like down, I'm going to either try to like lift them up, but it also can be really contagious. And then we both get down. So we've got to find ways to balance energy and bring out the best in each other.
What goes into an adversity plan? That's something that's really, really interesting to me. You mentioned there, do you try and understand how the other person responds to adversity, how you can help them through adversity? What goes into an adversity plan?
Yeah. So like for me, if I'm struggling, it's mainly because I'm overthinking. Obviously they're like digging me a ton. And what I want to hear from my partner is something that's problem solving. Like, what are they doing? What can be effective? and giving me some information that's going to help me for the next play. If it's about the past play, it's not going to help me. Some people maybe want to hear like corrections, but I want to hear like forward thinking and what's going to win us the next point.
Do you find that the partners that you play with are often very, very similar to you in kind of their style, their approach, their mindset, or do you gel better with people that are a little bit different?
Every partner I've played with is very different, and that's expected. Different from me, but different. Just everyone's so unique, how they feel pressure and how they approach the game. So it's really important to go over all those key points with each other. And obviously you can say it, but once we go through it, we can refine it and figure out how we can do it better the next time. Because I feel like in our sport, we play multiple matches a day, and I can play lights out one match and the next match, like, just be completely crap. It's an interesting sport, and we can go through so many highs and lows, and it's awesome to have a partner that can pick you up when you're struggling and vice versa. When they're struggling, I'm there to pick them up.
Why do you think it is that there are such highs and lows, and that it's such a challenging sport to be consistent in?
Yeah, I've never really thought about it. I think different teams do different things, and it can bring out good and bad in you, or expose some things that you weren't exposed to previously. The elements change. Yeah, you go through a whole new warm up, a whole new routine, and I don't know, there's just so much that goes into it, and it's unreal how up and down it can be. Obviously, we're always trying to be consistent, but it's just a really tough sport, and we're playing against the best in the world. We're playing in Elite 16 events, which is the top 16 in the world, and everyone's good and everyone wants to go to the Olympics. So it's really a battle every time we step out there.
But see, I am curious. At one point, you did some coaching at the college level. And I'm curious, how did that, well, first off, did you enjoy that experience? And second of all, were there things that you took from that coaching experience that have helped you as a player?
For sure. I coached for 5 years at LMU after I graduated. And I mean, you just see the game differently. Like, you're coaching and you're seeing these athletes make changes, and you're like, okay, I can make this change. And I also know how hard it is for these athletes. I can, empathize and sympathize with them about what they're going through. So it definitely made me better on the court, and I loved coaching, and probably will get back to it at some point. I had to stop because now I have a 2-year-old. I just had a newborn. It was really hard to juggle, like, competing and coaching and taking care of a newborn. So I stepped away, but still follow the team. I love the girls and all the relationships you build, and that's a huge part of coaching.
Betsi, you're competing against the best players in the world. And if things go as planned, you'll be at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. I'm curious, as you think about kind of the roadmap between here and Paris, what are some of the things that you're focused on in particular, whether it's the physical side of the game, the mental side of the game? What are some of the incremental improvements that you're looking to make?
Yeah, personally, I'm working on having like more vision. So if you watch beach volleyball, it seems very easy. You're like, wow, there's a lot of space in the court for that person to hit. But when you like look up at a ball, like, you can't see what's in front of you. So just improving and fine tuning that. And then just as a partnership, we're fairly new. So we're working on like just ironing out the kinks and getting our energy to a good spot and being able to peak towards like world champs, which will be in October. So I feel like we've had a slow start here in the beginning of this year, but I don't think we can go much lower. So I'm excited to like keep going up and keep getting better.
How do you improve that vision piece? What are some of the things that you can do there?
Yeah, it's a lot of the mindful reps that we talked about, and our coach being on it, and me sticking with it, even when I don't want to, even when it's hard and it's not working, just being really stubborn and staying with the process and knowing it's going to pay off.
All of us have things that it requires a degree of stubbornness to get through, right? You know the answer, but the answer, I say simple but not easy. That's something that I talk about a lot. There's a lot of things that are relatively simple, but they're not easy. And in many ways, those are the hard things that we have to do and get through in order to make improvement or overcome adversity. How do you stick with that? Or what do you tell yourself when you just don't want to focus on that area of your game?
Yeah, it's tough. I think acknowledging it with my partner and my coach, like even acknowledging frustration, like this is not working. Like, do I keep doing it? Do I not? And getting there, like they're sent, like, do they want me to keep going with it? Do we want to just like focus on winning this drill, or should I get better at this vision piece? So having their validation really helps, but just having positive self-talk, which isn't easy. And when those like frustrating moments come up, like acknowledging it, because again, I can't control it. And it's usually better if I say it to my partner and I get it out in the open. I end up playing a lot better. So just acknowledging those frustrations and moving on to the next point.
It's interesting, saying it helps you get through it. That's a lesson I think anybody can apply to whatever it is that they're trying to work on. Now, you mentioned you used the word peak, peak at the right time. I've talked to a lot of Olympians, both at the end of their careers, during their Olympic careers, and a lot of Olympians talk about that concept of peaking at the right time. And they use a phrase, managing energy, and making sure that the energy is right, both the physical energy and the mental energy. What are some things that you're doing to try and be intentional about peaking at the right time, making sure that if you get there as you intend to, that the energy level mentally and physically is right so you can be successful at the Olympics? What is going into that? How are you planning? Because we're not that far off when it comes to it.
Yeah. I think one thing is managing the tournament load. There are a ton of tournaments between now and Paris 2024. And we don't want to go too hard right away. We don't want to be playing in events that we're not ready for, or we don't want to be playing in 5 tournaments back to back to back, which is a possibility this year. So managing the load and figuring out, do we want to play 2 in a row, 3 in a row? Like, when do we want to have our rest? That way we're like energized and, like you said, like mentally ready for world champs in October. Those points are significantly increased, like weighted. So we want to like do really well there. So that's the goal right now. And then we'll reevaluate after that period.
I'm curious, Betsi, as we begin to wrap up our conversation, I'm having so much fun and I'm learning a ton. I'm taking notes. This has been awesome, Betsi. If you weren't one of the world's best volleyball players, what do you think you'd be doing? Have you thought about that?
I wanted to be a dietitian originally. Like in college, I just had an interest in food and how it applies to sport and life. So I think if I didn't go the volleyball route, I would have pursued that. But I can't imagine going back to school. So I'd probably coach. I really enjoy it. I got to coach for quite a while and learned a ton. So I'd probably go back to coaching and continue to be a mom, which is one of the most important jobs out there. So that would probably be my main thing.
Betsi, I'm curious, on that note, you've mentioned your daughter and being a mom a couple times in our conversation. I'm curious, your daughter's young, right? So it's a little early to maybe be trying to instill some of these lessons, but you certainly lead by example. When you think about your career so far, that if you put aside kind of the physical aspect of your beach volleyball career, some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, what 1 or 2 lessons are you really most excited to kind of teach your daughter and pass along to your daughter when she's old enough to understand those lessons?
Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely want her to like just be passionate in whatever she does, knowing it's not necessarily about the money or about all these other external factors, but like doing what she loves. And then I hope that I can instill like these like soft skills in her so she knows like she's determined, she knows she's brave and persistent. And every day before bed, I talk to her stuffed animals and tell the stuffed animals about like a time that she was brave that day or a time that she had courage, and like just highlighting those moments so she can get them in her head. And she loves it. She listens more than if I were to tell her. And now she like tells me to talk. She says, talk, lamb, talk, lamb. And she'll like push my head over. So I talk to him. So it's become a routine, and it's really cool for me to have those moments with her.
That is so cool. I absolutely love that, Betsi. That is awesome. Talking to the stuffed animals and letting her kind of absorb and take it all in. Well, Betsi, I've had so much fun. I have learned so much. Like I said, I've taken so many notes. I can't wait to keep up with your story and keep in touch and just hear how everything continues to evolve with your career on the court and off of it. Good luck with everything. I hope that we'll see you at Paris 2024. I know you're doing all the right things, and thank you for everything that you're doing and all the great lessons that you've shared today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
My pleasure. All right, Betsi, we'll catch up again soon. Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today is a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.